from FRC Team 2415, the Westminster Wildcats. Welcome to our FLL Made Easy video tutorial. I'm Emily.
And I'm Erica. We're here to give you hints about the components of the FLL competition.
Between Erica and I, we have 13 years of FLL experience, either as participants or as mentors. Our goal is to share our experience with you to make you a better team.
The FLL competition is broken up into 3 sections: robot, research presentation, and core values. Each of these sections is weighted the exact same, so each is 33% of your overall score. Make sure in your season to divide your time equally between the 3.
We plan to address each of these sections and provide you with hints to have a successful season.
The most well-known and usually the most celebrated part of an FLL competition is the robot portion. For this, you'll need builders and programmers. We can't tell you how to design your robot, but we can give you some universal tips.
While the robot will take a long time to complete, don't spend all your time there. Remember to focus a few hours a week on each of the other sections as well, so you're ready for the entire competition. While it is possible to move on from a regional only having an awesome robot, it's much more unlikely.
The first priority of your season is going to be the strategy. As a team, look over the game manual and discuss the missions either as a big team or in little small groups. First, decide what you want to do. Then you can figure out how you're going to do it.
Now, for building your robot. In experience, one of the most important things to do is have a robot construction that follows the 3-2-1 rule. This rule refers to the overall weighting of your robot. You want 3/6 or 1/2 of the weight to be on the bottom of the robot. That'll include things like motors, wheels, and your drivetrain in general. You want 2/6 of your weight to be on the middle level, which will include your brain and any attachments that you have on that center level. And you want 1/6 of the weight to be on the top. This will prevent your robot from tipping over or being top-heavy.
Another helpful hint is to make sure to keep the NXT brain flat. This will not only make buttons more accessible and easier to use, but it also makes it exponentially easier to attach different components. You won't need to worry about angling your pieces.
Another important thing to remember is you're only allowed to have 3 motors total. That means you'll need 2 for driving and 1 for attachments. So try and figure out a way to make your attachments easier to swap out.
Remember, you only have 2 minutes and 30 seconds to score as many points as you can, so you want to spend as little time as possible changing out attachments and returning to base. Think about where missions are on the board, and figure out which missions will give you the most points and work the best. You can do this by thinking about how you can make attachments to do multiple missions.
Keep in mind that many game boards contain black or colored lines that serve little to no purpose in the missions themselves. However, they can be invaluable if you're trying to do a line following program. We're going to show you some code that has a line following program already written, and if you're interested in doing something like this, it can make your missions a lot more reliable.
Another way to increase accuracy for your robot is by creating a jig, or some other way of reliably lining up your robot in the same exact place each time you run a mission. Some teams handle this by lining their robot up with the little hash marks in the base, but this isn't exactly reliable when you're under a time limit. Create a jig to help reduce the error and make sure you can have different ways of setting up your robot.
So, let's review. First, you need to strategize with your team to find the best missions. Next, remember the 3-2-1 rule. Keep in mind that your NXT brain would be flat in the ideal circumstances. Make multi-purpose attachments and consider line following and use a jig. Now, on to the research part of the competition. Remember, this section is equally as important as the robot competition and provides a greater chance of success, especially if you're a rookie team. There will always be that team that can score a perfect score on the robot competition. Unless you're sure that you're that team, you want to focus on this portion as well.
Your team will have 10 minutes to set up, present, and answer questions about your research project. The suggested time breakdown is 5 minutes presenting and then 5 minutes answering questions. But you don't really need to worry about the exact timing of your presentation. Most teams will do a skit or bring in a PowerPoint presentation, which can be a good idea, but only if you have a computer. Some other teams prefer to do a poster board presentation.
The topic for each research project is predetermined by the first officials and will be released when you find out your game at the beginning of the year. So while we can't tell you exactly how to prepare your research project, we can give you some useful hints. To achieve any amount of success in research, you'll need an idea, an innovative solution to the problem you're presented with. You don't have to create the next airplane or anything like that, but you'll just need a new idea. Think about what the objective is as a team and brainstorm some good ideas. If you can't come up with anything, think about some subtopics of the generic idea, but decide quickly.
You'll also need to share this idea with people in your community. Try sharing it with experts in your field or present to your school. Or you can even create a website or a blog to share your research project with the world.
When doing your research, remember to keep in mind what sources you're using. The judges often ask about your sources, and if you say you've only used Wikipedia, that's not going to be so great. Try to use reliable sources from the internet or face-to-face interviews. It can be helpful to provide judges with a list of your sources. You can just type it up and leave it with them when you go into the judging room. Also, you can give them a binder with some basic information, such as your sources, or how you arrived at your solution, some of your work that you've done. But don't count on getting this binder back. Some judges will give it back, but others won't.
Now it's time to talk about the portion of your research presentation that you have the least control over, the judges' questions. Notice that we said least control, not no control. One thing you can do is practice some of these common questions that we're about to ask you. Pause the video and take a minute to practice answering with your team. We'll start with the basics and move to the more complicated.
Here are a few reminders before you get started. Remember, you don't want one team member to answer all the questions. You have to answer the questions in the way that highlights what your team has done well, not what you've done poorly. If you get a question and you don't know the answer, the worst thing you can possibly do is to make up some far-fetched answer, because the judges will quickly realize that you're lying. If you make up an answer that's untrue, you're going to dig yourself into a hole, and that's going to be a big problem. Make sure you guys all work together and come up with a way to decide who answers questions so that it's not awkward.
Another problem that you can possibly face is if the judges ask you a specific question about an area that maybe you don't know much about. You can say, I focus more heavily on blank area of the project, but maybe blank could give you more information. Your teammates should take it from there.
Ready? Let's get started.
First question. What was the most fun part of putting together this project?
Question 2. What was the most challenging part of this project?
Question 3. How did you come up with the idea for this topic?
Question 4. How did you share your idea with your community?
Question 5. How much does your solution cost?
Question 6. Have you thought about the disadvantages to this solution?
Keep in mind, these are only questions that will apply to all research projects. Judges will also ask clarification questions based on your individual project, but we can't really predict those questions.
Let's recap. In the research portion, you have a 10-minute interview. That's split into presentation and questions. Find good sources, make sure you share your idea, and practice answering questions. In just a second, we're going to cover some basic public speaking and presenting skills that will help your team be successful in both the research and technical portions of the competition.
For starters, be energetic. You don't want to walk in without a smile and give a boring presentation. You want to be remembered at the end of the day, when the judges are discussing awards. Which would you rather be known as, the team with lots of energy or the team that seemed to sleep during their presentation?
Oh, and when we say be energetic, that doesn't mean whip out the most fake smile you can. Be genuinely happy to be there, or at least look like it.
If you have scripts with you during the presentation, you'll want to be sure that you don't fidget with your papers, as that can be very distracting for the judges while they're supposed to be listening to the presentation. You want the judges to hear everything you have to say, not your papers. The same applies for props or any other robot attachments you may have.
Make eye contact while speaking to the judges, whether you're answering questions or saying the lines in the presentation. If you need to, look down at your cue cards or scripts while other people are talking, but not while you're talking.
While talking, speak in an energetic, dedicated voice. You want to sound interested in the project, even if you weren't as involved as other team members were. Nothing looks worse than a team that doesn't care about the research project they're presenting.
And if we didn't stress it enough, the judges don't make their decisions until the end of the day. They'll only have notes to reference, so aim to make the judges remember you in a positive fashion. Make them remember you as the excited and smart team that works together and loves first.
Now for the technical presentation. This is part of the third of your overall score dedicated to the robot. This is the time that you'll get to explain and brag about your robot design and programming strategies. Judges will either ask you questions or let you present, so you need to be prepared for both. It is helpful to outline points that you want to be sure to hit during your presentation. These should include versatile attachments, combined missions, a jig, and any sensors you use.
It's also helpful to print out commented programs to give to the judges. That way they can remember what you showed them at the end of the day, when it comes to determining awards.
Generally, a judge would want to see your robot running a mission. Prepare to run your most reliable program. If you have more than one mission that works quickly and accurately each time, pick maybe the more impressive program that demonstrates a complex, unique, and reliable aspect of your robot.
That's really about it for the technical presentation. Basics. Now we're going to provide you with some sample questions. Same thing goes, pause the video and practice your answers.
First question. What sort of sensors did you use on your robot and why?
Question 2. What are you most proud of on your robot?
Question 3. Which missions did you attempt? This is a good time to demonstrate some of those missions.
Question 4. What sort of attachments did you use?
When answering these questions, make sure you include a brief coverage of what each attachment or sensor does in order to complete your missions. Talk about the uniqueness of the component, or how it improves speed and efficiency on the competition field. Once again, make sure the judges remember you.
Last but certainly not least is the core values portion of your competition. This portion of the competition changes at every venue and you won't know what it is before you enter judging. The best way to practice this portion is through sample challenges. Check out this link to find some.
Remember, the judges are judging you based off of your whole performance, not just the result or the time you get if it's a time challenge. You don't want to be yelling at each other as you discuss strategies. It's sometimes helpful to have an assigned team leader for this section that will help move the strategy decision-making process along. You don't want to take hours deciding the way you will attempt the challenge, and sometimes you don't need to hear every single idea that your team has. That isn't to say to shoot down ideas. Sometimes your best ideas will come from the most unlikely places.
Even if you don't successfully complete the challenge, you can still display great teamwork qualities that will make it easy for the judges to still give you a high score. So remember, stay cool under pressure and stress.
So that's it for our video. You can also check out the description for all of the resources we referenced during the video, plus some helpful extras. Feel free to email us at wiredcats2415@gmail.com with questions or comments about the video or about your FLL, FTC, or FRC season.
And remember, share this video with your teammates and friends to encourage interest in robotics and STEM. Good luck!